Someday Sasi presents wait, that's redundant, isn't it? Because you guys literally just saw the animation of me drawing my name. So me repeating it. Everyone else has a cool intro. Every other channel, I feel left out. I want to have a cool intro. I just can't think of one. It's like all these channels, they have the coolest intro and a really cool outro, plus something like quirky to make them memorable. Like some people have a hat or a scarf, or you know what? Hold that thought. There. Did it work? Am I memorable now? Oh gosh, glasses with contact lenses is a bad idea. Well, welcome, I guess. I mean, you guys can tell what I'm basing this off, right? Everyone knows, like, the real secret to doing YouTube is just enjoying what you do and having fun with the videos that you make, and I'm definitely doing that. And people have already sent cute little messages after only 2 videos, which is incredible. People have already sent me such sweet messages saying that they love what I'm doing, that they enjoy the videos, and people are already getting the someday Sasi message, which is to make today someday and to take that dream that has been on hold for a really long time and just do it, get started. People have already messaged me saying that they've done this, and I'm super happy, so I'm good. You couldn't see that thumbs up, I'm good. What else? So let me get on to the actual video. Just wanted to say that first. Every single video I try something different, because I'm learning editing and recording and all of these things as I go. So each video I'm confronted with a new challenge. Compressing that time lapse last time was insane. But this time I thought I would try sort of new camera angles, right? So there's this one. Any of you who have seen the first 2 videos know that this is a different angle. You can see my new wallpaper. I love it. And I don't know, I want to play around a little bit. This doesn't seem quite right. Nope. This is just ridiculous at this point. What? Using this as an excuse to show off my new wallpaper? I would never! I'm offended at the accusation. It's really nice though, isn't it? Oh man, that is gonna be such a pain to edit later. It's gonna be such a pain. I'm sorry, future me. Every single time I decide to make all of these clever jokes, like at the very beginning, animating my name and everything, and I don't think it through, and I don't think through how horrible that's gonna be in editing. So, sorry. Hopefully it looks good. I'm gonna enjoy this while I can. Anyway, so I did want to try something different for this video, which is I'm sort of gonna angle the camera down, I guess, and you've already seen the title of the video by now, and I assume you know it's about poetry. Hold on, don't go yet, because I thought that I would sort of like draw the story of how I fell in love with poetry and sort of get people to understand it a little bit better. So let's do that. Poetry. I'd never really had much interest in the topic before, and to be honest, I had a lot of the same stereotypes that most people have, which is that it's either roses are red, violets are blue, or it's just this overcomplicated gibberish that made me feel dumb because I couldn't really understand it. So naturally, I never really resorted to it, unless it was schoolwork, of course. That is, until 2 years ago when I attended my creative writing camp. Now, those were about 3 weeks that I spent writing, and it's safe to say that I was having the time of my life. Now, the course was divided in 2 parts. The first was short stories, which everybody adored. And please ignore my editing errors. The second part, though, was poetry. And it's safe to say that nobody was really anywhere as enthused about that. Now, my teacher was a really, really cool guy. He was like the sort of like chill college professor, and he was super smart. He had a PhD, and he was on his way to publish a book. Now, I remember he was giving us an introduction to poetry, and it wasn't really reaching a lot of us. But then he goes and he asks if anybody has any questions. And I asked something that my friends will never, ever, ever let me forget, which was, how do you poem? Everyone thought it was hilarious, of course. And he says, you let me know if you figure it out. He was a professional poet. He was publishing a book on poetry. He had a PhD. But that's his answer. Though, as the years have gone by, I have devised a couple of strategies to help poem, as I put it. The first is to read poetry, of course. Now, I'd recommend famous poets, obviously, and then Shakespeare in particular and his sonnets are very important. Then we've got meter, and you can't forget rhythm, or rhyme, which can be ABBA or ABAB. And you can't forget that we've got slant rhymes, and hallmark rhymes, and then of course iambic pentameter. Listen up, ladies and gents. If that's what you think poetry is, verses, and being vague and spending 3 hours on the internet trying to find something that rhymes with orange or Canada, then you've got another thing coming, okay? People start and think that poetry is some unreachable thing that doesn't allow people to actually enjoy it, not just read it, but actually write it yourself. People think that it's such a complicated thing, but it is the easiest thing of all. In the words of Ernest Hemingway, and yeah, totally quoting somebody more famous than me to make me sound fancy, he said, writing is the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is sit in front of your typewriter and bleed. Now, okay, I'm gonna down with the crazy music. I realize that's the second Undertale reference I've made, but just ignore it, I promise I'll stop. But poetry, the very nature of it is that it's a very personal thing. That's why often we don't always understand what other poets are getting at, because poetry isn't always about making everybody understand what was on your mind at that point. You write what's on your mind and what you're feeling, and then everyone takes away from your poem what they feel and what those words make them feel. Now, the first poem that I actually wrote was that very same day. It was that night. It was a poem called I Am Afraid. Now, I'm not actually gonna read it out to you because that was 2 years ago, and unfortunately I do not have it memorized, and I don't really have it here, and I don't want to go looking for it. I might... You know what? Hold that thought. The first poem I wrote, it was I Am Afraid, and this is the poem. I mean, it's not my best poem. Definitely not my best poem. But it's a poem where I realized what poetry was. You don't have to rhyme in poetry. You don't have to have a specific form. Our teacher told us, I'm going to teach you guys how to do iambic pentameter and the perfect sonnet. I do not expect you guys to hand in a sonnet, a Shakespearean sonnet. Because especially when you're starting out, poetry is just about expressing yourself. You grab what has been on your mind the very most. What I did, and what worked very well for me, was a fear. And you sit down and you just write what's on your mind. That's all there is to it. You don't have to use fancy words. You don't have to divide it up into verses. About 80% of my poems, I just write them in prose, and then I divide them up into verses because I think it looks prettier, but that's just aesthetic. Now, for this first poem I wrote, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's like a page and a half. One of my favorite lines is, I am afraid, I'm paralyzed, but not of what you think. Something else, something worse, drives me to the brink. Bring it on, I'll yell, ignoring all the strings. Shoot me down, tie me up, tear off my 2 wings. Now that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 6th verse that I write. And the first couple, they aren't as good. I was just getting to the idea. I'm listing a bunch of fears that sort of, they're not as bad as the ultimate fear in the poem, which is basically my bad memory. I am terrified of just having the time of my life and then forgetting everything. So the whole time, it's like car, plane, or otherwise, I fear no accident. Let my inner thoughts, desires all be evident. Cough, flu, or black page, my health is no concern. Endure I will any pain, any bubbling burn. Now, of course I'm exaggerating, obviously. I don't want to be in any sort of vehicular accident or to get burned or anything like that. But that's what you do a lot of times in poetry. You exaggerate. Okay, and when you exaggerate, you get your point across. And of course, you can tell that I was still keeping to the idea that a poem had to be bouncy, it had to rhyme and everything. As you go on, if you check out my blog, it looks like I'm just telling you to go to my blog, but really, if you do, I'll link it in the description if you guys want. You'll see that I've got 2 poems up there, and they don't rhyme at all. I mean, some parts rhyme, but sometimes that just happens unintentionally the more that you start getting used to it. But truly, I mean, it's just people who do it more and more often, they want to convey their ideas in a way that's easier for others to consume, right? So they'll come up with the jingles or with the rhymes, or they'll get completely overcomplicated and they'll do iambic pentameter, which sounds fantastic if you manage it. I've never really written a proper Shakespearean sonnet. That's on my bucket list. But poetry really is just about sitting down alone. My best ideas have come at 3 in the morning when it's pitch black and I'm completely alone and you're just there with your thoughts. And you just put them on paper or on the computer, as I usually do. But there are some of my favorite poems are completely simple, like, okay, let's see. Tyler Knott Gregson, I don't know if you guys know him, he has a typewriter series, and he wrote one of my favorite poems of all time, which is, I'm not quoting it word by word, but it was something along the lines of, don't spend so much time treading the water and trying to keep your head above the waves that you forget how much you truly love to swim. And it's things like that, just clever phrases like that. And you'll get those kinds of phrases. 1 in 50 phrases, you'll hit that spot. And that's what makes poetry worthwhile. I did not used to write much poetry at all, as I already said on the piece of paper that I ripped up. I didn't do it at all, and I still focus mostly on stories and all those things. But often, when I have something on my mind and want to convey that, even to myself, it is so refreshing to just sit down and let your ideas just spill out onto the paper. And it's a very, very nice form of expression, and I encourage you guys to give it a shot. And if you ever are in a bookstore, pick up a poetry book. A lot of them still aren't going to make sense just because I yelled at you. I'm sorry for yelling at you. But a lot of them, you'll come across maybe just one verse, maybe just one sentence that speaks to you. Not necessarily in the same way that it spoke to the author, that it'll speak to the next person who reads it, but poetry is about what it says to you. It's much deeper, I think, than most stories, which is why I think it is fantastic, and I just wanted to shatter that sort of stereotype and that sort of stigma that there is against poetry. So that was basically the idea of the video. I wanted to make some sort of writing video and I didn't really know what to do. So I thought that this was a really good idea. And I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I still do not have an outro either. So I'm going to tell you guys to have a very lovely day once again, because I like that. And thank you so much for watching. And once again, even though I just said it 2 seconds ago, have a wonderful day.